In this question, we are given that there are 6 shipments of machine parts that were shipped from a factory, and they were shipped on 2 trucks. And we are given a table in which the fraction of the total value of the 6 shipments are given. Now we also know that the shipments on the first truck, they had a value greater than half the total value of the 6 shipments. We have to check if S3 was shipped on the first truck. Now there are 2 ways to solve this question, and I will be discussing both the methods. So if we solve by the method 1 first, we change these fractions into percentages, and since these are very common fractions, you must be knowing that 1 by 4 is equal to 0.25, so converting them into percentage is easy. So let's change these fractions into percentages first. Now 1 by 4 is 0.25, which is equal to 25%. So the shipment 1 contains 25% of the total value of the shipments. 1 by 5 is 0.2. So shipment 2 contains 20% of the total value of the shipments. Similarly, shipment 3 will contain 16.7% of the total shipments. Shipment 4 will contain 15%. Shipment 5 will contain 13.3%, and shipment 6 will contain 10%. Now, expressing these fractions as percentage makes the calculation much easier, and it helps us to avoid mistakes. Now, we also know that the first truck had a value greater than half the total value of the shipments. So if we denote VT1 as the value of the shipments on the truck 1, we know that this value will be greater than half the total value. Now since we are expressing the shipments in percentage, we know that the total value will be 100%. That means that the total value of shipments in the truck 1 is greater than 50%. So this is one of the conditions that we know. We have to check if the shipment S3, this shipment is on the truck 1, if it was shipped on truck 1. So this is what we have to find. Now let's move on to the statement 1. So the statement 1 tells us information about 2 shipments that were shipped on the first truck. So this is about the truck 1. Now S2 and S4 were shipped on truck 1. Now from the table, the value of S2 is 20% and the value of S4 is 15%. Both of these add up to give us 35%. Now we know that the total value of the shipments on the truck 1 should be greater than 50%. If we add S5 and S6, we will not get the value to be greater than 50%. But if we add S3, whose value is equal to 16.7%, then the sum equals 51.7%. Now we know that this is greater than 50. So there is a possibility that S3 was shipped on truck 1. But are we sure that S3 was shipped on truck 1? Think about that. So there is also a possibility that S1 could be shipped on the truck 1. Now if S1 was shipped on the truck 1, the total of S2 plus S4, which was equal to 35%, and S1 is being shipped on truck 1, which is 25%, this would also give us 60%, which is greater than 50. So we are not sure if S3 was shipped in truck 1 or S1 was shipped on the truck 1. So we conclude that statement 1 is insufficient, as both the values of the shipment S3 and S1 makes the total value on the truck 1 greater than half the total value. So from the given options, we eliminate A and D. Now moving on to statement 2. The statement 2 tells us about the shipments on the second truck. That means here we have the information of truck 2. Now we are given that S1 and S6 were shipped on the second truck. Now S1 has the value 25% and S6 has the value 10%. Both these add up to give us 35%. Now we have to keep in mind that the value of the shipments on truck 2 should not exceed 50% because value of the shipments in the truck 1 is greater than 50%. So obviously the value of the shipments on truck 2 should be less than 50%. Now if we add S3 to this shipment, which is equal to 16.7%, this gives us a value 51.7%, which is greater than 50. So we are sure that S3 will not be shipped on truck 2 since this is making the value of the total shipments on truck 2 greater than 50%. So we conclude that S3 was shipped on truck 1. So from this statement, we are sure that S3 was shipped on the first truck. So we conclude that statement 2 is sufficient and the correct answer is option B. Now the other method that we can use to solve this question is to change these fractions into integers. So to do that, we take the LCM of all the denominators of the fraction. So the LCM of 4, 5, 6, 20, 15 and 10 equals 60. So we multiply each of these fractions by 60 and then we can change it into integers. So the total fraction, so the amount of shipment on S1 will be equal to 15, on S2 will be 12, on S3 is 10, on S4 is 9 and S5 is 8 and on S6 is 6. Also, since the LCM is 60, we know that the total value of all the shipments is equal to 60. Now, in the question, we also have that the first truck had a value greater than half the total value. That means the value on truck 1 is greater than half the total value, which is 60. So this gives us that the value of shipments on the truck 1 is greater than 30. Now this obviously implies that the value on truck 2 will be less than 30. So keeping these two in mind, we move on to the step 2 and analyze statement 1. Now the statement 1 tells us that S2 and S4 were shipped on the first truck. So from statement 1 we have the information about truck 1. Now the value of S2 is equal to 12 and the value of S4 is equal to 9. This adds up to 21. Now we have to make this greater than 30 since the total value of the shipments on truck 1 is greater than 30. Now there is we can add S1 to it whose value is 15 and then the total value on the truck 1 will be equal to 36, which is greater than 30. Or we could add S3 whose value is equal to 10 and the total value on the truck 1 will be equal to 31, which is also greater than 30. So we are getting two possibilities of where S1 might be in truck 1 or S3 might be in truck 1. So we're not sure which if S3 is in truck 1 or not. So we conclude that statement 1 is insufficient. And from the given options, we eliminate A and D. Now moving on to statement 2. The statement 2 gives us information about the second truck or the truck 2. Now the statement 2 tells us that S1 and S6 was shipped on the second truck. So from the table, the value of S1 is 15 and the value of S6 is 6. These two add up to give us 21. Now keep in mind the value of the shipments on the truck 2 needs to be less than 30. So to check if S3 was shipped on the first truck or not, let's add S3 here. If the value becomes greater than 30, then we know for sure that S3 will not be shipped in truck 2. So from the table, we have the value of S3 to be equal to 10. Now this adds up to give us 31, which is greater than 30. Now this is not possible since value of the shipments on the truck 2 has to be less than 30. So we know for sure that S3 was shipped on the first truck or the truck 1. So we conclude that statement 2 is sufficient and the correct answer is option B.